Life After Death was a really interesting documentary about, Soviet wartime issues and the stories that followed that. There was a lot to digest in it. Um, the way it was told almost reminded me of, excuse me, my dad's a historian, and sometimes the way he would explain like a lot of stories at once when I would just be asking like who fought at this war, like I have to answer a homework question. And that's not to say that there wasn't a lot of information, valuable information that I was being told, but it was hard to cipher through the information that was being relayed back to me to get to the main answer of what I was looking for. I think there's so much here to look at. You have in-person interviews, you have a little Ken Burns action going on, you have different clips that are put together, and some real life reenactments going on in this, and they changed the tone and the pacing of the piece as a whole. I think I would look at where those are super valuable to the piece, and what is the message that what is the true story you're really trying to tell in this, and see if you can edit that together that way, or break this up into multiple, like a docu-series, because there's really a lot of valuable information in this piece. It's just kind of hard to see what is at the core of the story and what's not throughout. But it's very clear that this was very well researched. The creators of this, you're very passionate about this issue, and that really comes forward with how much you've really delved deep into this topic. So those are just a few things to think about. But overall, really well done. Good job of creating this piece of art, and I'm excited to see what you do next with it.
These reviews for Life After Death. This was an interesting film. They had very important footage from wars and conflicts in the 40s, the 60s, and then the 90s. And they provide an intense, quite heated, and sometimes hard to follow debate between three individuals talking about events taking place in India around a character named Bose. This has some intrigue and conspiracies and different versions of what could have happened and whether or not this man was dead or alive, based on different evidence they all provided during this conversation. Um, I learned a lot about India's ties with Japan, France, Russia, UK, and Vietnam, and it was quite insightful to see the dissenting opinions at place and how humans react to these differences. You can see some might be open to arguments, some might not be that much. You see their reactions to specific statements, how they are closing off to any idea or they just had enough. I mean, that was a very important exercise of debating in a healthy way and where it can turn out ugly. I loved it, and I just learned a lot about this bossy character, and it is quite intriguing story.
This was an interesting documentary. The music was very action packed, and along with the reenactment scenes and the topic, it kind of felt a bit like sort of a action spy thriller style movie, which I thought was an interesting choice.
Life After Death. I thought this was really, really interesting. This is not something I had ever heard about. I think that with history and with different countries, and especially when you're getting into global events like world wars, I think that for the most part, every country and the way that they teach their history to their kids, to the children in school, has a different kind of tilt on it, and it's all told from the perspective of that country. So even if I'm learning about, like, even when I was in school and you are learning about world history in America, you're still learning it from an American, like, perspective and point of view, because those are the people that write our textbooks, those are the people that are teaching us, those are our teachers and everything else. So getting to learn about this, which was complete, like, didn't have anything to do with my home country, wasn't like any, you know, people like specifically involved or anything like that, was so interesting and like really fascinating to actually learn about, because it's not something that I learned about when I was growing up, because it doesn't have anything to do with the United States. And I really appreciated that during the entire interview, it was two different perspectives. It wasn't just somebody asking questions to only one person to getting their opinion and what they think on it, but it was two almost opposite opinions the entire time, but it was still respectful, and it was still, they still like had their time to explain their points of view after each question and after each, you know, next section as you're learning more. And I really liked that, because it did, when you're asking a question like this, that's, you don't, there's not like a cut and dry kind of answer, because the facts are kind of blurry or hidden or classified or whatever else. Having multiple perspectives, I think, is really good, because people have, you know, done their own research or have, you know, different points of view on it and things like that. And I really appreciated that this entire, you know, movie was kind of built upon, I'm going to present you the evidence and hear two different perspectives, but like you can make up your own mind about what you think the truth is, which I really liked.
Life After Death was a very information-packed documentary. I thought maybe at times a little bit too information-packed, but I will say I really appreciated the reenactment scenes. It really cut up some of the information, and as someone who's never heard about this culture or this event or this subject matter, it definitely made it easier on me to see some sort of reenactment. I thought the music was big and bold and added to the action, suspense, sort of stakes of the retelling. And yeah, it was very fascinating. I think at times it got a little bit quick and too much, and I think it could afford to slow down and take its time, but overall it was really fascinating.
Hey, my name is Nick Arcero, and I'm commenting on the documentary short Life After Death. So right off the bat, I'll say that this is a really fascinating subject matter. This is definitely a story I've never heard before, but it's exactly the sort of mysterious circumstance that I tend to really love to sink my teeth into and just, you know, find out everything about. That being said, I think that there is a better way for you to deploy this. Right now, this is just an information overload. I'm having a really tough time following everything. As a Westerner following this, I'm having a lot of trouble keeping names straight. I think this is one of those things where each question that you ask in the first few minutes of this piece could warrant an episode in and of itself. I would rethink this as a limited series, like a limited doc series, and really give it the context and the background information and the room to breathe that it needs for somebody who isn't intimately familiar with this story to be able to follow what's going along. And then as far as the actual filmmaking goes, I would lose the filter, the like vignette filter that you're using on a lot of it. It just makes the footage look dark and like it wasn't shot well. I get the dramatic effect, but between that and I think a score that would be more appropriate for like a reality competition series than a doc, I think you could give this sort of the gravitas and the seriousness that the subject really deserves.
I thought Life After Death was really interesting. As someone who has studied history, it was a part of history that I had never really heard about or been able to dive into. So I appreciated that it focused on that, and I also really liked the angle that it took of going about it like a conspiracy theory and including different opinions in it. I think that it just made the argument that the filmmaker was making so much more believable, and I found myself kind of Googling on the side and trying to figure it out myself, which I think makes something like this a lot more engaging for a viewer. My one complaint was that at times the music was a little too loud, and I think sometimes it just didn't match with what was going on. But other than that, I thought it was a very engaging film, and I really enjoyed it.